Hi, my name is Stephanie, and welcome back to this three-part series on AI coding in Rise and Storyline. Now, this one is going to go deeper into the Rise code block library itself, and I'm going to go into some detail to show you how I go about building the code blocks. I have a particular process that I follow, and it's actually consisting of two parts. The master prompt is the technical architecture for how the code blocks get built, no matter what AI that you're using. The second part is an intake prompt. The intake prompt is the conversational guide. It will step you through your idea that you have all the way through to a completed Rise block. All of the Rise code snippets that are in the code library were all created using this methodology, and they're all free for you to use. So you can go ahead and download those anytime you want and drop them into your projects. The methodology itself, which is what I'm calling my Rise build system, are also free for you to use, but I'm asking for your email in exchange for that so that I can keep in touch with you when I have new content out on Rise, Storyline, and more AI in the design and development process. So with that, let's begin. Rise is brilliant, fast, clean, and consistent with a layout system that really just works. It also has a learner experience that holds up across multiple devices. For a long time though, if you needed something Rise couldn't do natively, the answer was a Storyline block. But that answer has changed. The Rise code block lets you extend Rise's functionality directly, and it does something Storyline actually can't: truly responsive interactions. But it comes with some limitations. The code block itself runs inside of a sandboxed iframe environment. The sandbox is what makes certain things behave differently than you would expect, such as height reporting, external links, print functions, and font loading. All of these things need to be handled specifically for the Rise code block environment. And that's exactly what my Rise build system does. It makes sure that each of these code snippets are developed exactly the same way and are compliant with Rise. So let's take a look at how this works. If you use AI and describe what you'd like, something like build me a sorting interaction, it's likely to start doing that right away, building something plausible and functional, but not exactly what you had in mind. You can get closer to what you really want by regenerating and tweaking, but that takes time and tokens. If you try the same thing in Claude, you'll notice it responds differently even if you've never built anything with it before. That's because Claude tends to clarify before building. So the richer the context, who the learner is, what they need to do, and where this block sits in the course, the more strategically it reasons about the problem. When I do this, I use a single chat for each code snippet, and that's because the reasoning Claude builds over a conversation compounds. But if you're creating a lot of snippets, you should consider setting up a project and build all of your Rise code snippets inside that project. And here's what that looks like. I have a master prompt in the project instructions that loads automatically with every new chat in that project. As I said before, it's the technical standard that governs all code blocks. My existing snippet files are also here as reference material. Claude uses these to match patterns and stay consistent with what I've already built. The second prompt is the intake prompt. This can also live in the project files, or it can be pasted to start a new chat. So the intake prompt guides the conversation one step at a time, while the master prompt ensures whatever's being built is compliant with Rise. So that's the setup. Let's see it in action. I'm going to demonstrate the Rise build system using a sorting interaction. Learners can drag items in any order they think is right and then submit their answer to see how they did. They can keep trying this until they get them all right, or you can limit their attempts and optionally show the correct answer. This was built start to finish using my Rise build system. So all I had to do was start a new chat inside the project and ask Claude to find the intake prompt. This begins the intake process that involves 10 steps, and now Claude is guiding the conversation. First, it asks how complete my idea is. In this case, it was only partially defined. Next, it wants to know what I actually want to build. Not just what I want to build, but rather the context around it. The more you provide here, the better Claude will be at reasoning around that. After a bit of back and forth clarification, Claude gathered enough information to present a design review. This is an important step because it confirms what it understands you want, flags any issues or decisions that are needed, and waits for input. From there, you have the option to prototype your code idea. It'll do this in the chat environment if it can represent it properly, usually for simple interactions. Otherwise, it'll open up the canvas for full HTML rendering. In the chat environment, the prototype is just a functional sketch or a wireframe. The styling is rough, but at this point, I'm just testing logic. I can test whether the drag works, whether it evaluates items correctly, and whether the feedback makes sense. All of this is tested before any Rise-specific code gets written. Once I confirmed the behavior was right, Claude went ahead and converted it for use in Rise. The Rise-compatible code came out clean on the first pass. Claude might suggest improvements at this stage, or you might have new tweaks that you want to make, so expect some iteration. Once the code is tested and I'm happy with it, I tell Claude to wrap up the process. It then creates a customization guide for the snippet, which is its documentation, and suggests 3 alternative learning-related uses for this code snippet, some of which you might not have even thought of yourself. So the whole session, from intake all the way to a fully tested and compliant code snippet, took about 40 minutes to complete. You can see the row sorting interaction here in the code library, but also there's a card variation that was created because of a suggestion from Claude using the exact same process. So the full Rise build system, the master prompt, the intake prompt, and setup instructions is what turns a one-off build into a repeatable process. You can even use it to update code you've already created so it matches the technical standards of this system here. And by subscribing, you gain free access to this system. Over in the code library, you'll find a suggestion box. If there's something you'd like me to build, just enter your ideas there. The sorting interaction in this post came directly from an idea in the suggestion box. That said, you'll soon discover that you can use this Rise build system to build anything you want. And that's it for this post. So until next time, have fun coding in Rise.